Today we're diving into the Rising Tides map, and I'm about to show you a unit strategy no one else has even considered. I'm also joined by the legendary World War III player Meliodas. We're forming an unstoppable anime squad, and we're totally losing on day 10. I'm joking, of course. We'll lose a bit later. So let's start from the beginning. We joined the 2060 Rising Tides map, playing as a mighty nation with 5 cities. I immediately went with my standard opener, built army bases, recruiting offices, and started researching combat recon vehicles. I also queued up arms industry construction in every city except the one with supplies. 30 minutes later, I kicked off CRV wave mobilization. I definitely overestimated my resources production and reserves. On the other hand, nothing warms the heart like knowing that everyone else on this map is suffering just as much as I am. Except my ally in Belarus. He has 6 homeland cities. I sincerely hope he loses one. Once I had my first and the last CRV wave ready, I began my conquest and disembarked in Finland. At the same time, I started mobilizing a corvette. I think you understand just how important naval units are on this map, so of course I went for the strongest one. As you can see, I've already burned through all my pocket money on resources. But thanks to that, I was able to start researching gunship helicopters very fast. At this point, you'll notice me using my fighter jet for scouting. Meanwhile, let me walk you through the core of my strategy. You've probably guessed it already. I'm going for helicopters and elite frigates. This season, everyone has access to elite submarines, and the best way to deal with them is to pay a little house call with some frigates and ASW helicopters. That's what I'm trying to prep for. I captured Helsinki, and my next victim will be the city of Turku. Nothing can stop me in this world. Also, I finally started mobilizing my first helicopter. The sooner I get air power, the sooner I can start cleaning up land for conquest. What is my neighbor doing meanwhile? He already took a Polish city, losing just a sliver of health. He also stationed garrisons in the border towns in case of invasion. A solid decision, since seeing Marines in our stacks makes us want to attack everyone even harder. My armored division has 43 anti-infantry damage, which means that 2 Finnish infantrymen are basically a snack, barely a single bite. Clearly, Finland didn't expect an invasion from my direction and left his cities wide open. So I just waltz in and loot resources whenever I want. I've already set the routes for finishing off the country, but I should still be ready for resistance somewhere in the provinces. 12 hours later, I'm already at my next target. Once again, it's just 2 infantry. A very favorable situation for me, since I can crush these scattered enemy battalions with my oversized division and take 0 losses. Naturally, not all enemy divisions are this helpless. Near a Norwegian territory, I found a sizable stack of 7 units. Attacking it would be costly, so I decided to nibble at it with my corvette instead, and began researching my second favorite unit of all time, elite loitering munition. I'm launching them using marine infantry. The devs gifted us this unit, so I intend to squeeze every bit of value out of it. Let's be honest, you almost never see anyone use ELMs on day 4. And I'm proud to present this revolutionary idea. At this stage, I've got a surplus of components and fuel. So from my perspective, drones are the most efficient way to boost my combat power while still keeping up the production of electronics-consuming units. After 4 ELM strikes, only 3 enemy units remain with a health pool of 27 points. So I sent in my scout minions to finish the job without wasting time. I dispatched my amphibious minion to capture a portless province, and I hope to reach the resource point soon. On these maps, you need to capture victory points as quickly as possible. Back in my villain lair, my second gunship is almost ready. That means I'm about to unlock air raid potential. Of course, a gunship is no omnipotent unit. For example, it can't solo enemy recon vehicles. Meanwhile, Corvette number 3 is about to be deployed. All in all, my development is going smoothly. My helicopters were still warm from the assembly line when I launched an attack on Sweden. I immediately felt empathy for the recon division in Stockholm, because it might be damaging my gunships just as hard as I'm damaging it. Hard to tell who's the real victim here. In my second raid, I spotted 2 ground signatures and 1 aircraft steadily approaching me. I chose to attack the ground targets while avoiding the flying one. Obviously a fighter, and not something I wanted to mess with. However, my opponent disagreed and sent a fighter jet to attack. Thankfully, it was just 1 plane, and it clipped one of my corvettes, losing some health and making itself easier to kill. Even better, the enemy struck right as my corvette's cooldown ended, meaning I could retaliate while he was refueling in Stockholm. Sometimes the stars just align. I decided to merge my corvettes and land units into a single battle group to distribute incoming damage more efficiently. Right now, corvettes are my high-value asset, and every health point matters. Land units, on the other hand, can afford to take some hits, as long as they don't die. The enemy hit my hybrid battle group and returned to refuel. He's got one more strike left in him. Meanwhile, Corvette number 3 arrived and is ready for military duty. A few minutes later, my large recon division stormed into its first Norwegian city and started clearing out the local garrison, which clearly posed no threat to my Baltic tourists. Soon the city was mine. Unfortunately, a Norwegian corvette crept up on my battle group and struck with brutal force. Luckily, I've been mass-producing my fleet non-stop and using ground units as meat shields, or in this context, meatballs in the soup. That means I'm stronger and tankier. A little later, I attacked and moved closer to the enemy to check out its composition. Turned out it was just a single corvette at half health. Naturally, it had zero chance of survival, so I relaxed a bit and even let him strike me for the second time. But soon after, my counterattack finished it off. 5 hours later, another naval signature started creeping toward me. Once again, it turned out to be a Swedish corvette. This time, I was ready. I struck first and immediately turned around to avoid a counterstrike. Sensing defeat, the opponent tried to pretend he was part of the Norwegian province and hide. But I wasn't fooled. After all, I studied geography in school. I identified the corvette right away and am now on the path to eliminating it. Soon I spotted a large Swedish division with 7 units. Of course, I wasn't afraid. I had a full buffet of damage dealers. Drones, helicopters, corvettes, and of course, good old melee combat. However, the enemy didn't wait around to be destroyed. He launched the first strike. I repositioned into the province center, which reduces incoming damage by 25%, and set up a defensive line. Meanwhile, I sent one of my minions to capture an ungarrisoned city to block mobilization, and pulled a low-health marine unit out of the stack so it wouldn't get wiped. It may be weak, but can still grab territory. My calculations were flawless. I wiped the enemy division without losing a single unit. Trust me, I'll have plenty of opportunities to lose them later. At the same time, Sweden tried to hit my squad in Stockholm using the most self-destructive unit in the game, mercenaries. I only recommend using them if you're actively trying to sabotage yourself and downgrade your KD ratio. I hit their band twice with helicopters, and the third strike ended their suicide mission. 9 hours later, Sweden attempted a landing in a Finnish city. However, our local furniture mafia, disguised as my corvettes, raced in full speed to intercept the intruder mid-disembarkation and protect our market from foreign IKEA. So, 2 corvettes attacked first. Guess how much damage they did? They shaved off a mind-blowing 13 health points. But wait, there's more. Corvette number 3 was en route. It also chipped in, dealing another 6.5 damage. Excellent result. Meanwhile, my helicopters, which had taken some punishment during earlier Swedish attacks, arrived just in time to put an end to this invasion attempt. After that, I sent them off to Meliodas' hospital for some well-deserved recovery. I know, this is exactly the kind of teamwork you've been waiting for. 2 days later, I had fully colonized Sweden and was reaching my greedy fingers toward Norway. Luckily, he is an inactive player, so when I encountered a large division, I just walked around it and continued capturing provinces. My air force has plenty of time to clean up the leftovers. At this stage, I already had a frigate, 3 gunships, was building my second fighter jet, and researching elite frigates. It became clear for me that on this map, you can't mass-produce units early on. That's why my trump cards are frigates, as AA platforms and river patrols, and helicopters as my reliable but weak damage dealers. By day 9, I had sunk my teeth into Norwegian territory like a Baltic bulldog, using my ships to wipe out garrisons in the cities. 3 corvettes are an efficient tool for this job. And best of all, they don't need to recover at Meliodas' hospital afterward. The smoke rising over Stavanger is a clear sign that the local troops are toast, and the city awaits my capture minions. Meanwhile, my helicopters are being redeployed to a Swedish city where I've rebuilt the airfield. I plan to use them to clean up a rare materials victory site. My resource production is terrible, and this boost is the perfect remedy for my economic pain. My elite frigate is about to be launched, and a 4th gunship is nearly combat ready. Naturally, I plan to use them together. Helicopters and elite frigates make one of the best combos in the game. As you can tell from my units and construction priorities, I focused heavily on building combat forces, especially frigates. There's simply no time for infantry or arms industry nonsense. My teammate has already blitzed through Poland without all the drama I showcased in the last 9 minutes. He's preparing for an invasion of a coalition made up of Serbia, Romania, and New Yugoslavia, currently at war with Turkey. However, that didn't stop them from placing an outrageously bold airfield right under our noses. This made my helicopters absolutely furious. On a side note, the rebels on this map scare me just as much as the enemy, maybe even more. Every oil rig is guarded by a sneaky frigate and corvette. So, I think I'll leave the oil wars to my enemies, and maybe my ally. That's all for today. See you soon.